Which ancient culture was way more fked up than most people know? Feudal China was super into burying people alive. Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor responsible for the unification of China, upon his death, had 70,000 concubines, servants, and workers forcibly interred alongside him. The terracotta army was constructed only because murdering all the soldiers as well wasn't an option. I was recently stunned by the amount of atrocities the Japanese Empire has done. Mutilation of babies, forcing kids to rape their mothers, putting mothers into chambers with boiling grounds to test them if they would put their kids on the ground so that they don't get their feet scorched, by stepping on their bodies, carrying baby corpses on bayonets. There are literally no words in any dictionary to describe what they did. I know people wouldn't be surprised by hearing about the Aztecs due to the human sacrifice from war prisoners. But oh boy, it was way worse. If I recall correctly, there was a moment of betrayal that happened from an "I'm doing this from memory." They decided to break peace by killing a princess-like figure by removing her beating heart and when inviting her father to an ominous meeting showing a boy wearing her skin and clothes. Sparta. People in general remember them as just being these badass super soldiers, but don't know how Spartan society was built on draconic slavery and institutional pedophilia. Most ancient cultures were way more cruel than people know or imagine. Just capital punishment is a great example. It's not that you did something bad and we will kill you, oh no, it's you did something wrong and we will torture you in unspeakable ways. Death is not the goal here, it's just a byproduct. History is the worst. Spartan society was fueled entirely by slavery. Massive slave population, actual citizen force pretty small and useless at anything but soldiery. According to Aristotle, the Spartans knew full well the slaves could snap and revolt at any time, and they outnumbered the masters so hugely they could possibly win, so the Spartans had a policy of keeping their slaves constantly in fear. They even had a public holiday where they massacred slaves just to break their wills. A lot of Pacific cultures practiced cannibalism. Some still do in Papua New Guinea. But Maori here in New Zealand did in some tribes as well. So the worst insult you can use in the Maori language, pokokohua, means to boil your head. Harking back to when people were boiled and eaten. It's not particularly ancient and the actions aren't as fucked up as many of what is listed here, but I find absolutely insane that East India Company, a private company, ended up accidentally colonizing India. The idea that a company that exported tea would end up with a standing army is some real SCI if dystopian shit. 10 million Africans died under the reign of King Leopold II of Belgium. Absolute horrific brutality. He belongs in the same category as Hitler, Stalin, and Pol Pot. One time I visited Canada in 2004 and they poured maple syrup on pineapple pizza. Ancient Greece. A lot of people imagine clean villas, people with white togas talking about arts and philosophy all day. The truth is that most people were dirt poor, being born disabled or being born a girl could be a death sentence, and pedophilia was rampant among the rich. Also, a lot of their economy was based on slavery. Aztecs. Priests would sacrifice hundreds of people, slaves, and prisoners of war. Rip the chest open and pull their still pumping heart out. Throw the bodies down the steps. Channels were carved into the pyramid faces to let the liters and liters of blood flow down. Horrible stuff. When I was watching Castlevania, I did some research where the Dracula myth comes from and stumbled upon Vlad Tepes Dracula, or by his nickname called Vlad the Impaler. They are not sure about the numbers, but you have to impale a lot of people to get that nickname. Carthaginians were apparently quite fond of burning their toddlers for shits and giggles, aka religious reasons. Kinda counterproductive, ain't it, though it might be all Roman propaganda for all we know. Scythians look up their skull cups. Or don't. Pedophilia was common in ancient Greece. Pederasty, a sexual relationship between a grown man and a pubescent or adolescent boy, was most common among the ancient Greeks. The older man would typically be the one who would pursue the relationship with a young boy, ideally in his teens. These relationships often involved a lot more than just sex. They were seen as a civic duty and a form of mentorship. The Hawaiians practiced a lot of infanticide. Unwanted or sickly babies would be chucked off a cliff straight into the ocean. They were also big fans of incest. Lots of sister fucking going in the Hawaiian Islands. Which actually might account for some of those deformed babies. All of them. We're genuinely a fucked up species. If one traveled to ancient Rome, some 5,000 crucified rotting corpses would guide you the way. Aztecs were pretty messed up, but Babylonia? They left behind whole walls of sculpture depicting how many hundreds of thousands they killed for sport. I'm pretty sure it was worse when Neanderthals walked amongst us, but no written record. When we learned about Chinese food binding in school, I was horrified. I still am, when I think about it. I'll give you a modern one: the Himba tribe. Reddit just loves to romanticize the Himba, whose men will famously offer their wives to honored guests for the night. Married guests can literally swap wives with their hosts. It's not hospitality, it's rape. Himba women have no say in who they marry, it's arranged by their parents. The girls are married off when they hit puberty, which means girls as young as 10 can be married. So not only rape, but rape of literal children. We like to think before the slave trade these parts of Africa were all peaceful and great, but really they were already enslaving each other, and many larger kingdoms like the Zulu and Dahomey were oppressing the smaller one. Funnily enough, the Persian Empire was actually way better than it was portrayed. It was extremely open to different religions and were very advanced in civil liberty. When you really look at it, the Greeks were kinda the baddies in the wars between these empires. Even Alexander basically said that after conquering Persia. But because we get a lot of our information about the classic period by Greek and Roman writers, Persia was seen as a barbaric tyrannical state. People romanticize pre-agricultural cultures, but they were brutal. Something like 2 out of 3 people died violently in hunter-gatherer cultures. All this brutal fucked up shit I'm reading in these comments. Did people back then just not feel pain the same way we do, or what? Medieval France, they used to burn cages of cats for sport. Every ruler of Hellenistic Egypt was extremely inbred. Ancient China under the Qin dynasty pretty much practiced ancient totalitarianism, complete with book burning, purges, and all the other brutality of modern totalitarian states. That one that killed a lot of people and had slaves. Basically all humans were sadistic pieces of trash. Mayans. All of them. I made it a goal to read 500 books on history, was all rape, slavery, murder, and subjugation. Some eye-openers were: A World Lit Only by Fire, The Gulag Archipelago, Ordinary Men, Guns, Germs, and Steel, The Vigilantes of Montana, Empire of the Summer Moon, Anything on the Bronze Age. Also, if fiction is your thing. Blood Meridian. While fictional was so well researched, most the heinous acts written were based on things that happened in American history. What Spain did about 500 years ago with the Inquisition, it's nuts. In California, during elementary school, we had to learn about the California missions. Basically, we were taught that the natives and the Spanish were happily existing together, but that was definitely not the case. In reality, it was straight-up forced assimilation. The Habsburg dynasty in Spain used to breed with their own family to keep the bloodline pure. It ended with reign of Charles II, who was so inbred that he had black testicles and several developmental disorders. He was unable to have any kids, which led to the end of the Habsburgs in Spain. All of them. People romanticize an ideal of what they think an ancient culture is like. Rome.